Hey there, thanks for joining me today. This is Michelle. You may know me from my art studio, Creative Cottage Studio in New Hampshire, or you may know me from Instagram under the moniker of Tape and Twine, where I work on my art journals, my junk journals. But before my junk journals, through my business, Creative Cottage, I did mostly polymer clay and polymer clay classes, which I still do, but I've branched out quite a bit with my books. Well, my love for clay is now, I'd like to bring that to the table with my junk journals, because I think that's what I could really offer this community is some additional materials that we can work with and get creative with our books. So you may have seen on Instagram, if you follow me, these little faux typewriter keys that I made, and you could make these into charms, paper clips, add them to embellishments, and that's the project we're going to do today. But before I start, I just want to show you a little bit about my polymer clay projects and some of the things I might be able to teach online in the future. So all of this began because I'm a little whimsical and I love gnomes, and I started making little clay gnomes. One with curly hat, one with pointy hat. And these guys really were kind of my trademark. And I started branching out into fairy garden kits, little houses. I think I have a little house right here. And garden, sort of garden decorations, which I still do. And I still teach classes on this. But I really love vintage books, and I've always loved vintage books. And a couple of years ago, I started making little miniature vintage book charms. And I was just thinking now how cute these would be on a journal, especially when we're making the ones that hang off the back, by adding some beads and baubles, things like that. How cute would that be hanging off of a journal? I have a couple like with nests, more the bird natural kind of thing. Some nice blue beads. I made one that was sort of an ocean theme, so there's like a starfish on there with some starfish charms. So these are things that we can also work on together, maybe in the future. Even a bookmark, you know, with a bird's nest on it. So these are some of the projects that I've worked on in the past. I've also been playing around with image transfer. And image transfer, sometimes they come out quite vintagey, depending on the graphic, a little bit like a scrimshaw, which is pretty cool. And I could see these as plates on the front of books. This is quite a small book, so it's going to be a little proportion off, but you know, just if you could kind of picture a cute little plate in the front, we can do that as a future project as well. And finally, the other thing I thought that might be really interesting to make in the future, if you're interested, is maybe little fairy doors that we could like sort of place on a book. Especially if it was like an enchanted journal or an enchanted book in the corner or down here. And then I just think it's very whimsical and sweet. So those are projects we can do in the future. But let's get down to today's project, which is the typewriter keys. And it's a great place to start with polymer clay, especially if you have no experience. So let me talk a little bit about polymer clay. Polymer clay comes in these little packages, and you can get them at all of your hobby shops and stores. And there's some brand names you probably recognize, like Fimo and Sculpey. And this is the Michaels brand Craftsmart. So each kind of clay has different projects it's the best for based on its consistency and how hard it is afterwards. Now Fimo is really the one that jewelry makers use for beads. and things like pendants because it is so strong afterwards. However, very hard to work with if you're not used to clay. It takes a lot of conditioning. I always say the beginner clay is like Sculpey III. It's soft, it's easy on your hands, everyone can use it. But it's not for every project. But that's basically what we're going to use today. So Sculpey III is sold at like Joann's, Hobby Lobby, all the major stores. Is somewhere around $3 a brick for 2 ounces. But Craftsmart is sold at Michael's and it's only about $1.69 without a coupon. So this is what we're going to use today, just because I had it open and we're using black. But I do use this with my students in some of the beginner projects. So if you're just trying it out, don't buy the really expensive stuff. Try, you can use Craftsmart. Do not buy their premium clay though. That's a whole other conversation we won't start today. Just get their basic colors in the white package. You may run into a lot of problems with the premium clay, but that's like I said, another discussion for another day. So we're gonna start with this. Because these are metal keys, you could do a silver clay or a gold clay. However, I like the black because we can add the metallics to it. So it comes as a brick, and some people think you can just break it off and start working with it right from there. The 2 big things to think about with polymer clay success is making sure you bake it right and you condition it right. Conditioning it is taking it and essentially kneading it, rolling it and twisting it and kneading it until you get it into such a soft state. Not too soft, you want it still to be somewhat firm, but you want it to be comfortable and you don't want it cracking when you're using it. I'm going to try to use very basic things today that you may have around the house so that you don't have to invest a lot in this project and you can kind of try it out. Right, see some things are moving on in, so let's make some. Okay, so here's just a little ball of polymer clay, and we're going to cut it like this, and I'm going to roll it into a little ball. Okay. One of the things you probably have around the house if you're a scrapbooker or if you are a junk jeweler is an acrylic block for stamps. They work perfectly in this project because as you depress on it, number one, it makes it very nice and the same consistency all the way through, but you can see how big it's getting. So you have a perfect little circle there, like that. And the thing that you want to try to find is a cookie cutter that's approximately this size. That's the hard part. That may be the thing you do not have in your house. And in that case, you're going to have to be creative. It could be maybe the cap of something that you could use as the cutter. It could be anything with a hard edge. You could, use a cork and depress it and then try to cut around it. But, I have a set of cookie cutters that are circles that keep going down in size, and this is one of the smaller sizes, and it fits the typewriter key perfectly. But you may have to find something around your house that works for you. I basically designed this project around, I believe this is a 1/2 inch cutter. There's no marking on here, but my guess is it's a 1/2 inch. And that's the size piece of paper that it cuts out. And I'm going to have a free printable with all the keys on it so that you will have that after this project. So it just punches these out. So basically what's going to happen is you're going to find your cutter or something that's close to, the cutter, and you're going to cut a circle for your key. And then you're going to find something that's going to make the impression in the center in a circle, perfect circle. Now, you want it to be the right size. So what I did, what I love about polymer clay, is that you don't need fancy tools most of the time. You have the things you need around your house. I went around my house until I could find a label that matched up. And I finally found one with this whiteout container, which is quite silly, but it fit perfectly. And I thought, okay, that's the right size. Then I noticed it had this kind of this edge that had these little lines, which I really loved because it gave texture. So what I do is I take the center and I press it in the clay quite firmly until I have a great depression that this will rest in. Let me get that out. But by pressing it down, I've changed the size, if you can tell. So I'm just gonna go back in with that cookie cutter and trim that extra off. And it may not be 100% perfect. After all, we are making these. These aren't actual keys, but you know, this is clay. You can roll it, tap it a little bit, kind of make it round again. You can even go back in with your cap if it's not pressed all the way. And what you want to do is try to make that as round as you can. You see that? Okay. So you're going to make a couple of those. We'll make a couple of those. Again, just rolling a ball. And I always tell my students to make sure that ball has no cracks in it, no dents, fingernail marks, because those are the things that will be in your project after when you're baking it. Okay. I'm going to press it flat for the consistency that I like for the key. And I'm going to cut it out with my cutter. Press it the center with my cap, go back in with my cutter, and there it is. I had a little, I don't know where it went, something just to go underneath and peel these off, like a little spatula. All right. So the last one I'm going to make is one that I want to hang as a charm. I don't want to make it quite as thin because I want to put a eye pin in it so I can hang it. So I'm going to make it a little thicker. Let's see if you can see the thickness there. There it is. I'm going to cut it. And I'm going to press it. Go back in. All right. Now this one's a little bit thicker. So I'm going to go in with, I have these, you know, a little tin of like little eye hooks. I don't know if you can see them. You know, you get them at the jewelry store. They're very tiny, just in the finding section. And I'm going to very gently press that hook in because you want to bake that in there, and you might need to come back in and just reshape a little bit. One thing about polymer clay, you do not want to get it warm. If it gets too squishy, then put it in the fridge and harden it up a little bit because you don't want it to be like that. It will not be able to shape well. It'll be hard to work with. Better to work a little bit on the harder side than on the not hard side. So I'm going to grab this one. I'm going to come up close. Now, as you can see, there is like a little ridge in it from that cap I had. And I want this to look like metal now. So I have some gilding wax, and I'm going to actually ask my community out there. My gilding wax is starting to dry out, I think because there's so much air in it. If anybody knows how to keep this a little bit soft or to rehydrate it, I'd love to know. But anyway, I have some gilding wax here. This is the, that's the Gold Rush, and this is, I think, Silver Frost. And basically you're just gonna, if you don't know what gilder's wax is, it's a wonderful thing to have. It goes on everything. Paper, wood, anything you're working with. It's basically a wax that has metallics in it, and then you can just sort of rub it on your finger and then rub it around the project, and the ink, the gilder's wax will give it a nice sort of real metallic edge. And then you can also just do like a little of the edge, not maybe all the way around, maybe just a little here and a little there. Just a strong edge like that. That looks nice as well. You can go a little on the side. This one I'll mix a little gold with it too, just because I want to. See how dry it is? I really need to rehydrate this. I bring it to all my classes and I think it stays open when the kids are using it. Okay, so then once we have our gilder's wax on and we make a bunch of these, if you've done any home projects around the house, just a ceramic tile, like one you put on your floor or that you use in your backsplash, this is the best polymer clay product. This, you can make things on this as your surface, you can bake things on it, it's just wonderful. So you're going to put your little guys on there, and then you're going to bake them. This is the important part, very important. The success of your polymer clay projects are 1, based on how well you condition them, and 2, how accurate you are in baking. So each product has on the side the temperature that it works best in. It's not like baking cookies, you don't just kind of fudge it. It has to be that exact temperature. And just 5 or 10 degrees warmer or cooler can make the difference between whether it's strong or whether it burns. So just pay attention. So you want to bake 15 minutes according to your package temperature. In this particular case, the Craftsmart is 275. So I'm going to go put it in the oven at 275 for 15 minutes. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. My items are baked. Well, actually they're not, they're in the oven. But I baked these before I started the video just so that we'd have, by the magic of TV or video, you wouldn't have to wait for it to bake. You want to, when you take these out of the oven, make sure they cool completely before you take them off. Polymer clay is very rubbery when it first comes out of the oven, and it gets harder as it cools. It's also the time it's most likely to break is when it's rubbery, so you just want to kind of let them cool on their own and then take them off when they're ready. So here's the second part of the project. And I put my light on because it started getting a little dark, so the lighting might be a little wonky. I made this printable with a bunch of typewriter keys, just the caps. And this is actually 85% that I printed it out on because for this particular punch, if you wanted the entire thing plus the little white edge that gives it a little definition, you would print it at 85%. I am going to actually use it at 100% because I just want the black part. Maybe I would want the little edge more if I had a different color clay, but with black, I'm happy. Plus, if you don't have gilder's wax, maybe you want that because that'll give you the definition as well. So here we are at 100%, and I cut off an edge. Hold on. Here it is. And all I do is I take my punch and I, cut a strip, and then I line it up so that it goes completely around and is centered, and then I push it through. Okay, so when you have your letters that you like, I'm going to use, happen to like the ampersand. So I'm going to use the ampersand, I'm going to use the tab, and I'm going to use, well, this one's kind of fun because it has a number and the little deal on it. So I'm going to use these 3. So basically now all that you do is I take a black ink pad and I like to just go around the edge just to make sure that edge is nice and dark because I want it to blend really well with the project. Okay, and then I kind of place it where I want it just to make sure it fits well on my little key. I do the next one. And if it's a little bit big, you might have to trim it down. It's not an exact science because these are made from clay and you're making them by hand. So some might be slightly. Okay. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to use glossy accents. Now, a couple things about glossy accents. I really like this product to make a little, that glossy top on my book plates and also to make things look a little bit like jewelry. Somebody had shown a technique where they took a pin and they put a little bit of glue inside and then stuck that in there permanently so that the pin stayed in the hole when you weren't using it and it kept that track clear. Well, I thought that that was brilliant until it sat long enough and I started getting like rust from the pin settling in the glue, which I am really not thrilled about. So while I think that's brilliant, it probably needs to be some kind of pin that doesn't rust. I don't know which ones do or don't, so I don't do that anymore. You can even see a little of the rust on the glue. So usually your glossy accents won't look like this. You can also use Mod Podge Dimensional Magic. That will work, I think, just as well as this. I have that as well, but I just prefer to use my glossy accents. This is another really, really important thing you need to know about polymer clay. Because polymer clay is made of a chemical, it's not a natural clay from the earth, you have to be careful what adhesive you use with it because you don't want a chemical reaction. Now, it won't explode on you or anything like that, but if you use the wrong product, they will degrade. So please make sure Mod Podge products are completely safe for that product. I believe Glossy Accents is. It's not giving me any problems, and I'm going to look into it a little bit more. But basically, you could use this. You could use another varnish that's safe for polymer clay. You can use super glue on polymer clay. You can use E6000, but never, never, never use anything with acetone in it. So don't use anything that has acetone. Don't use anything like a fingernail polish. People love to varnish things with fingernail polish. Fingernail polish will actually degrade polymer clay. Acetone is actually used to clean polymer clay, but you wouldn't want to put too much on it because it'll break it right down. So you just want to use the right adhesive. So we're going to take a little bit of our glossy accents. We're just going to put a little dab right in the center. And mine is a little bit gunked up because, again, the glossy accent tip gets very blocked. That's why people were putting the pins in them. I'm not sure how you guys are putting pins in glue and not getting the rust. I mean, what am I doing wrong? Please tell me in the comments. Okay, so you have your dots of glue, and you're just going to tap that down. and make sure it's in the center. And if there's a little coming out the side, just wipe it down. Now, I would wait for this to dry about 15 or 20 minutes to really set. That's what I would do. But because this is a tutorial and we don't have that kind of time, I'm just going to go to the next step, which is let's pretend that this is nice and dry. You're going to come in with your glossy accents and you're going to come right over the top of that paper and you're going to try to make it nice and neat and sort of like a little glossy button. Do you see that? Now it will look very hazy at first, and that's okay. It's going to dry clear. I'm trying to look for one of my finished ones. This was hazy too, but it dried nice and clear. And you're just going to come in and you're just going to coat your keys with that nice, and if you get your finger in it like that, you can just, when it's new, it'll just fill right back in. It's not a big deal. I don't like to get it on the edge because I think it looks a lot more realistic if that glossy accents is right on the key, because it makes it look like a little glass cabochon top. Actually, I'm going to put them on here because glossy accents takes a day to dry. Truly, a solid day. But then it's so hard. It's perfect. So that's how you make them. Super, super easy. A few things. Remember, we put a little eye pin in one. Again, this isn't baked, but the eye pin would be the same thing. And then you could actually hang it from a necklace. You could hang it from your book. So that's the other option. Oops, my husband's home, so hold on one second. Sorry about that. My husband just walked through the door. So I'm going to try to fit this last little bit in quickly. Just a few last thoughts. Once you have your embellishments done, just think you could glue them on tags, make a tag look super cute. You could put them on little embellishments that you've made, little collage embellishments, you know, little things, however you want to put them on. And then you could also put them on paper clips. So to put them on paper clips, you would just cut out 2 circles, imprint the top one, and then make one for the back, and then sandwich the top of the paper clip in between. And then because it's clay, you can take your thumb and finger and smooth it out just a little bit and bake it just like that. You can put the gilder's wax on as well. And look how cute that would be on a book. Of course, it's not finished, but you get the idea. I also want to mention that the only necessary things are clay and either glossy accents or Mod Podge Dimensional Magic in a little cutter, but really everything you probably have around your house. And if you're not ready to invest in gilder's wax, cheap makeup from the dollar store isn't quite as good, but does work pretty good. They have a lot of metallics, and you can rub it on the clay, let's see, the same way you would do the gilder's wax. See? So that is, you know, a $1 fix to getting away from having gilder's wax. So apparently I am not going to be able to make a video today without being interrupted, as my dogs are now scratching at the door. My husband's home, but hopefully I've fit it all in and it's made sense. And I will be posting in the description of the video a place where you can download this freebie so that you can make this project yourself. And I hope that you will like this video if you found it valuable, and subscribe. Thanks for hanging with me. See you later. Bye.